We begin with the saga of former President Donald Trump. Now, tomorrow, he will be indicted in New York City at 2:15 p.m. He then says he'll return to Florida to give a speech at 8:15 p.m. from Mar-a-Lago, his home there. There is word, but we can't put it into any perspective, that a gag order on Donald Trump's being considered. That would be very, very unusual, but I want to bring it to your attention. Tomorrow, the charges against Trump are going to be unsealed by the grand jury proceedings. Leaks say that the main charge is going to be falsifying business records, which is a misdemeanor in New York, unless another crime is attached to the falsification or the alleged falsification. So it's kind of murky. Now, that doesn't stop the pinheads on cable and TV and radio from condemning Trump or acquitting Trump. I mean, we don't know yet. So we're not going to do that on this broadcast, and I hope you respect that. We are, however, very skeptical of this entire process. Very skeptical. So again, falsifying business records usually is taken care of quickly by a fine or something like that. But this, of course, is now blown up into one of the biggest criminal cases in American history. It better be worth it to divide the nation like this. That's my opinion. Okay, so now Trump has already been convicted, as I said, by the Trump haters who are using one mantra. Roll the tape.
That no one is above the law, not even a former president of the United States. You know, this is a very sober time for our country.
As a message you'll, I'm sure, hear from the district attorney in Manhattan, nobody is above the law, and he's going to have to go through the same basic proceedings that any other criminal defendant must go through.
Very simple, Simone. No one is above the law, not even someone running for president of the United States.
All right, so when you hear someone say no one is above the law, know one thing. These are not very intelligent people. Okay, they are using a cliche that came out of K Street in Washington, as everyday propaganda does. So they're not smart enough to formulate what's really going on here when you hear no one is above the law, because it's not true. It's false, and I'm going to prove it right now. So we'll remember the George Floyd riots, a terrible part of American history, okay? And for weeks, there was violence all over the United States. At least 7,000 people sought medical attention. 7,000, okay? Nearly 17,000 were arrested. Probably more than $2 billion in insured property damage took place. At least 20 cities had to declare a curfew. So you'll remember all this. I mean, it was vividly portrayed on television. Well, how many people do you think were prosecuted for all of that mayhem? 2. We can't find anybody else. There were 2 people in New York City who threw a Molotov cocktail at a police car, and they were convicted and sentenced to state prison. That's it. 17,000 arrested, 2 that we can find. And we searched. We searched federal and state records. 2 out of 17,000. So when you hear no one is above the law, the rioters were. Were they not? Yeah, they were. Above the law. They weren't prosecuted, even though they did damage to other human beings and to property. Massive damage. So let's stop with this equal justice for all stuff. We don't have that anymore in this country. I don't think we ever did. But now it's a joke. We do not have a functioning justice system in this country. Our main body of investigation, the FBI, is politically compromised. If you're involved with any civil court beef, you will pay hundreds of thousands of dollars to a lawyer, and the judge or jury may not even follow the law, and there's nothing you can do about it. Every day, thousands, probably tens of thousands of Americans raise their hand in a courtroom and swear to tell the truth and perjure themselves, and it's never prosecuted or rarely prosecuted. Never here in New York where I am. Oh, there's no justice system anymore. It does not exist. So no one is above the law? Come on. Let me give you another one. All right, so there's a grand jury in Delaware that heard the case of Hunter Biden. All right, so Hunter Biden, from a number of sources, and did not pay taxes on that money. So overdue taxes totaled $2 million, and they were paid by who said, hey, we had every scam in the world going, no indictment. No dismissal, nothing. The U.S. attorney in Delaware simply did nothing or has done nothing. Is no one above the law? Either indict him or dismiss it. What did the grand jury say? They're no longer sitting. What was their conclusion? We don't know. American people don't know. It's in Congress now. This is no one's above the law. I'm not even getting into Hillary Clinton, who is a massive federal violation on her personal computer, destroying evidence. I mean, on and on and on. That was, nobody disputes it. They don't dispute it. It wasn't prosecuted. No one's above the law. I think Hunter Biden, Hillary Clinton, and all the 17,000 rioters are above the law, I guess. And everything I just told you is absolutely 100% true. There's no doubt. So stop with this nonsense. Okay, so to conclude the talking points memo, this is a dark time in America, because the institutions that we trusted, the FBI, the Justice Department, the functioning local courts, okay, they're corrupt. They're gone. I mean, I've been through a lot of litigation. I am shocked at what happens in that courtroom. And I'm sitting there listening to it. Contracts, forget it. You sign a contract, forget it. Judge, if that doesn't want to uphold, it's not going to uphold it. If you get married, prenup, and all of that, forget it. Forget it. I mean, if you are an affluent person in this country, it's going to cost you more than $1 million, particularly if you have children, in marital court. It's insane. And who's getting rich? The lawyers are getting rich. And the arbitrators are getting rich. They're judges who sit in private chambers and hear cases that don't go into court. They're getting rich. They're all getting rich off it. I hate to be cynical, and you know I'm not a cynical guy. Okay? I'm a fact-based guy. But this is so far out of control. And you know what? It's not going to get back under control. It's too far gone. So I tell people, concierge members for BillO'Reilly.com, look, you need a good lawyer. You need someone who understands that this system is corrupt and can get you around it, because there are ways to do that. The critics of the indictment are pointing out two things: that the federal government looked at this, all right, the Federal Election Commission didn't indict, and that Alvin Bragg, who is indicting tomorrow, the DA in Manhattan, his predecessor, Cy Vance, didn't indict. Could have, didn't. And that's what the defenders of Trump are throwing out. Here's what Vance said yesterday. Go.
As I believe you know, I was asked by the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Southern District to stand down on our investigation, which had commenced involving the Trump Organization. And as you know, as someone who respects that office a great deal and believing that they may have perhaps the best laws to investigate, I did so.
All right, I believe Vance. I believe that's true, that the federal government asked him not to get involved. I think the federal government asked Bragg not to get involved. And that Jack Smith, the special prosecutor looking at January 6th, can't be happy about this. But that's speculation on my part. I do not know that to be a fact. What I do know is that Bragg hates Trump and is using his office to punish Trump. And I know that, but what he said in the past. Go.
I'm the candidate in the race who has the experience with Donald Trump. I was the chief deputy in the Attorney General's office. We sued the Trump administration over 100 times for the Muslim travel ban, for family separation at the border, for shenanigans with the census. So I know how to litigate with him. I also led the team that did the Trump Foundation case. So I'm ready to go wherever the facts take me and to inherit that case. And I think, you know, it'd be hard to argue with the fact that that'd be the most important, most high profile case. And I've seen him up front and seen the lawlessness that he can do.
All right, so this is the guy. He's already convicted Trump. Even though Trump has not been convicted of anything, this guy's already convicted him. Due process? Bye. No more due process in this country. So Bragg should have recused himself from all this based upon his past statements. Okay, he's not coming in with a presumption of innocence. Remember, that's what our justice system is based on, a presumption of innocence. You think Bragg is giving Trump the presumption of innocence after saying that? Come on. It's absurd. And I don't know about Trump's lawyers, but that'd be case number one I'd throw up to get the thing thrown out. Outrageous. All right, enough about me. Let's bring in Brett Tallman. He was a former U.S. Attorney for Utah, head of the Tallman Group right now from Salt Lake City. So I went over a lot of stuff, and I didn't use any speculation. I'd use one bit, and then I told the audience it was speculative. But let's go run them right down. Bragg has convicted Trump years ago, correct?
Yeah, and you referenced that he should recuse himself, and I believe you're the only person out there that's caught this issue. There are several ethical requirements on a prosecutor. One of them is that they would actually recuse themselves if they have any history with a target. I had to recuse my office when a sitting member of Congress was referred to us for potential criminal violations. It is standard. But apparently it was not an issue for Alvin Bragg.
Well, that's because the justice system is broken down, as I said. By the way, do you concur with that the justice system across the country has collapsed?
I agree with it. And I'm shocked that more people aren't saying it, but for decades, we have been granting more and more power. The legislature has been granting more and more power to prosecutors, but less and less accountability and transparency. So it's a wicked combination, what we've done in the criminal justice system.
I mean, when you have a mass demonstration across this country after George Floyd's killing, and you have 17,000 arrested, probably more than that, and 2 wind up in prison, and then you have these idiots going out there above the law, no one's above the law. I mean, how can you not be cynical? How can you not be?
Yeah, and it's very tragic and sad for those of us who have, spent 25 plus years in the criminal justice system to have watched the evolution. One famous justice, Justice Sutherland of the Supreme Court, said that the prosecutor was not a normal person to the litigation. He was, in fact, the only servant of the law. And his point was that it was the law that needed to dictate and not the individual. And we flipped it on its head. And now, who can have confidence? You outlined all of those, that are above the law, and the list is longer than even what you went into.
Yeah, I only have 45 minutes here. I could go all in. I mean, look,
hours.
If those of us who live in New York know Alvin Bragg doesn't prosecute violent felons. just throws the cases out on technicalities day in and day out and day in and day out, above the law. Come on. What about Vance saying, look, don't blame New York City. We were looking at Trump, but then the Fed said, pull back. Do you believe that?
I do believe it. There is an unspoken rule between state and federal, criminal justice systems, and this is it, Bill. It's whichever entity has the more serious investigation, that entity takes the lead. Sometimes it's the state, but that's traditionally a homicide investigation. Anything like this, where they're bootstrapping a misdemeanor into a federal election violation, I mean, there's not only deference, but I can tell you from speaking to several friends in the Department of Justice, they are livid that this is the first case that gets that goes out. They wanted something a lot more serious to go out of the gate, so that they knew that there was something more to what they were doing against Donald Trump that wasn't just a witch hunt. Now it plays into that narrative perfectly.
Now, Jack Smith, the special prosecutor appointed by the Biden administration, Merrick Garland, he can't be happy about this because Smith is trying to lay a conspiracy charge on Trump over the activities on January 6th. That's what he's trying to build, a case of conspiracy to undermine an election. That's what Smith is trying to do. And now, with this low-level beef of a business transaction that's illegal in New York State, that makes his job harder, Smith, correct?
Yeah, it makes it harder. And look at just the reality. Smith has already subpoenaed several Secret Service agents to try to get to the bottom into what, Donald Trump may or may not have done with the classified documents. Very few people even noticed that. That's a very big, bold move, but we're not talking about it because we're all embroiled in this circus that Alvin Bragg has created.
Well, we don't know, though, and I don't think that, I could be wrong on this, I don't think the document thing is where Smith is going to, I do think that Smith is going to bring conspiracy charges against Trump for January 6th. That's my bet on this. That's where I think it's
I think you have, a good reason to bet on that, because I think that's the case that they can get a lot of public opinion behind, and Georgia's working in connection with that theory.
But the Georgia thing is weak. The Georgia thing is weak. It's based on 2 phone calls, and I've read the transcripts of the phone calls, and they're not. But conspiracy is easy for the federal government to charge. That's the easiest avenue to get anybody, right?
It's easy because, you're right, because conspiracy is a standalone. You don't have to actually prove the underlying crime. You just have to prove the conspiracy, and you don't have to prove that the members of the conspiracy were discussing the conspiracy with each other. It's one of the most easy cases to bring in the federal system, and it's done every day in this country. Yeah,
against heinous criminals, they can't get them any other way. They go with conspiracy. That's what RICO's all about. All right, finally, I get a lot of mail on the Durham investigation. Next month, it'll be 4 years that this man has been paid out of taxpayer funds, and his whole staff, all expenses paid, big salary, 4 years. His mandate was to find out, all right, the FBI and other Justice Departments' intrusions into the bogus Russian collusion investigation. What they did, phony warrants, all of that. 4 years, Brett. Does that make any sense to you at all?
No, I can't believe it's 4 years. I will say you and I still look, handsome and like we haven't aged much in those 4 years. But I can't believe it's been that long. And I would say that I'd rather they took those resources and did a serious investigation into Hunter Biden and into the Biden, allegations. It's too bad that we're expending taxpayer resources, because Durham has been a flop from the beginning outside of exposing.
Awful. And this just plays into my hypothesis at the top of the program: the justice system's corrupt. I mean, you pack it after what, 2.5? You go, I can't do it, or we didn't find anything. 4 years, and he's not going to wrap it next month. It's just going to be, wow, we're in for 4 years, because it's a gravy train. So they're all making money, and what do? What do you do for 4 years? It's not that complicated.
like everything else in Washington, D.C., it's all about their own personal survival.
That's absolutely, you know, you're such a smart guy. There was a reason that I had you on, and I forgot it. But now you reminded me. I was there last week. These people live in a bubble. They don't know anything other than, you know, their own little sphere and what parties they're going to go to. You know, with other people in Washington. It's like, oh, my God. All right, Brad, we're going to bother you over the next couple of weeks or so about this Trump thing. You're, I think, our strongest guest on these matters of justice in the country, and it's just a shame. We, the people, deserve better. Thank you, Brett Tallman.